Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Ankita Jain from DSSPR, New Delhi. From today we are going to talk on module Industrial Relations from paper Human Resource Management. Learning outcomes. The main objectives of industrial relations are to develop and maintain harmonious relations between management and labor, so essential for higher productivity of labor and industrial progress in the country. To safeguard the interest of labor as well as management by securing the highest level of mutual understanding and goodwill between all sections in the society. To establish and maintain industrial democracy based on participation of labor in the management and gains of industry, so that the personality of every individual is fully recognized and developed. To avoid all forms of industrial conflict so as to ensure industrial peace by providing better working and living standard of workers. To raise productivity in an era of full employment by reducing the tendency of higher labor turnover and absenteeism. To bring about government control over such industrial units which are running at losses, for protecting employment or where production needs to be regulated in public interest. To ensure a healthy and balanced social order through recognition of human rights in industry and adaptation of complex social relationships to the advancement of technology. Introduction. Industrial relations or IR has traditionally been a firefighting function in our country. The IR man comes into full play only after crisis erupts. The relationship between the employer and the employee is usually referred to as industrial relations. The labor management relationship is highly sensitive and complex aspect influenced by variety of factors. The nature of industrial relationship in an organization is determined by factors such as the organization culture, the attitude of management, employees and unions, conditions of employment, the existence of grievance handling system and dispute settlement procedure, and the efficacy of rules and regulations. As a separate field of study, it is basically concerned with the systematic study of the various aspects of labor management relationship. An industrial relationship arises out of continuous interaction between employers and the unions which represent employees. Thus, the chief actor in industrial relations are the employers and the unions, and their main relationship is through collective bargaining. Compensated related issues, workload problems, retrenchment, layoff, and similar issues can determine the degree of cordiality in the industrial relationships collectively and individually. Meaning and definition. Industrial relations means the relationship between employers and employees in industrial organizations. According to Dale Yoder, the term industrial relations refers to the whole field of relationship among people, human relationships that exist because of necessary collaboration of men and women in employment process of modern industry. In broad sense, the term industrial relations also includes the relations between the various unions between the state and the unions as well as those between the employers and the governments. Relationship of these associated in industry may be called industrial relations. Meaning and definition. The subject therefore includes individual relations and joint consultation between employers and workers at the place of work, collective relations between employers and the organization and trade unions, and the part played by the state in regulating these relations. Industrial relations involve the study of how people get on together at their work, what difficulties arise between them, how relations among them are regulated, and what organizations are set up to protect different interests. According to ILO, industrial relations comprise relationship between the state on the one hand and the employers and employees organization on the other hand, and the relationship among the occupational organizations themselves. The ILO uses the term to denote such matters as freedom of association and the protection of the rights to organize, the right to collective bargaining, collective agreements and conciliation and arbitration, and the occupational organizations at various levels of economy. According to Michael Armstrong, industrial relations is concerned with the systems, rules, procedures used by unions and employers to determine the reward for effort and other conditions of employment, to protect the interest of the employed and their employers, and to regulate the ways in which employers treat their employers. According to Edward Ted and Henry C. Metcalf, industrial relations is defined as the composite result of the attitudes and approaches of the employers and employees towards each other with regard to planning, supervision, direction, and coordination of activities of an organization with a minimum of human effort and frictions, with an animating spirit of cooperation and with proper regard for the genuine well-being of all members of the organization. According to Siobhan Otter, the study of labor management relations (LMR) refers to the rules and policies which govern and organize employment, how these are established and implemented, and how they affect the needs and interests of employees and employers. The foregoing definitions reveal the following points about industrial relations. Industrial relations are the outcome of employment relationship in industry. These relations cannot exist without the two parties, employer and employees. Second, industrial relations include both individual relations as well as collective relations. Individual relations imply relations between employer and employees. Collective relations means relations between employers' associations and trade unions, as well as the role of the state is regulating these relations. Third, the concept of industrial relations is complex and multidimensional. The concept is not limited to relation between trade unions and employer, but also extends to the general web of relationship between employers, employees, and the government. Fourth, industrial relations is a dynamic and developing concept. It undergoes change with changing structure and environment of industry. Fifth, strictly speaking, a distinction can be made between human resource management and industrial relations. Human resource management deals mainly with executive policies and activities regarding the human resource aspects of the enterprise, while industrial relations is mainly concerned with employers-employees relationship. Sixth, industrial relations do not function in vacuum. These are rather the composite result of the attitude and approaches of employers and employees towards each other. Industrial relations are an integral part of social relations. Seventh, several parties are involved in the industrial relations system. The main parties are employees and their associations, employees and their unions, and the government. These groups interact within the economic and social environment to shape the industrial relations system. The main purpose of industrial relations is to maintain harmonious relationship between management and labor. The focus in these relationships is on accommodation. These parties involved develop skills and methods of adjusting to or cooperating with each other. They also attempt to solve their problems through collective bargaining. Ninth, the central and the state government evolve, influence and regulate industrial relations through laws, rules, agreements, awards of courts, executives and financial machinery. The government has played an increasing role in industrial relations, in part by becoming the biggest employer and partly by regulating working conditions in the private sector. 10th, the scope of industrial relations is quite wide. The main issues involved here are: A. Grievances and their redressal. B. Workers' participation in management. C. Ethical code and discipline. D. Collective bargaining. E. Standing order. And F. Machinery for the settlement of industrial disputes. Distinction between human resource management and industrial relations. First, in HRM, there are two main parties, employee and employer, while in IR, there are four parties, employee, employer, trade union, and government. Second, formation and implementation of HRM policies. In IR, there is implementation of HRM policies result in IR. In HRM, conflicts arising out of poor IR require reformation of HRM policies. In IR, sound IR contribute to organization goals. In HRM, individual employee contacts with the immediate superior. In IR, employees as a group contact even the top management. In HRM, grievance and disciplinary procedures used to solve employer-employee conflict. In IR, collective bargaining used to settle term and conditions of employment. Parties involved in industrial relations. The major parties involved in industrial relations are employees, employee representatives, employers, association of employers, government, and court tribunal. Employees. Employees are the main party of industrial relations, as there is a huge majority of employees working in the organized and unorganized sector in our country. Therefore, it is useful to make certain circumstances. First, commitment to industry. Labor is committed to industrial setting. Thus, contribution to stable workforce, as most of the employees belong to villages, but due to work they are forced to stay in city with his spouse and children, which make the job stability more prior if industry want to maintain their relation. Second, protective legislation. From time to time, the government has enacted a variety of labor acts. Perhaps ours is the only country in the world which has so many acts to protect workers' interests. Thanks to the enormous protective legislation, wages, benefits, and working conditions, safety, and health of workers have improved considerably. status of the workers. The economic and social status of today's workers is vastly improved. Industrial employment is no longer the undesirable alternative left for those driven out from villages. Improved skills, contents of the jobs, and increased emoluments have made industrial employment the first attraction among young job aspirants. Next, employment pattern. Another feature noticed in the industrial labor is the change that has come about in the employment pattern owing to change in industrial activity which has tremendously expanded and diversified and has undergone a technical transformation. In the early days, unskilled work predominated in industrial employment, so long as traditional industries like textiles and mining were in the forefront. Approaches to study of industrial relations. Since the employers and the employees have conflicting interests over the organizational resources, industrial relations remain a complex and sensitive issue. On the one hand, the employers in business aim at making more profits and faster growth by reducing cost. On the other hand, the employees seek to enhance their income and social status by demanding more compensation from the employers, and this will obviously push up the cost of production. The interests of the employers and those of the employees often remain irreconcilable and their stand remains mutually antagonist. These approaches are: first, the unitary approach; second, the pluralist approach; third, the system approach; fourth, the social action approach; fifth, the Marxist approach; sixth, the Gandhian approach; seventh, the human relations approach; eighth, the Giri approach; ninth, the industrial sociology approach; and tenth, the Oxford School approach. First, the unitary approach. This approach characterized by a form of administration in which power is vested with a single authority. In the case of the unitary approach to industrial relations, the authority rests solely with the management with no right to anyone to challenge its decision. According to the proponents of this approach, its basic assumption is that the common values and objectives unite and bind both the management and the workers. The use of power in this approach is only for the common good and interest. The management, this approach believes, must deal strongly with the perceived challenges born out of irrational beliefs, the short-term preoccupations, and the narrow perspective that develop from the ignorance of challengers to its authority and to overall system. Second, the pluralistic approach. Unlike the unitary approach, the pluralist approach believes in basic ground rules, negotiated settlements, and mutual compromises for solving the industrial conflicts. The basic assumption of this approach is that the disagreements between the parties to the industrial relations on important issues are not unbridgeable by compromises and the collaborations can continue at all stages. In the pluralist approach, the power is not vested with any one group. Rather, a balance of power is maintained between the parties to the industrial relations. Third, the system approach. This approach was developed by J. P. Dunlop of Harvard University in 1958. According to this approach, individuals are part of an ongoing but independent social system. The behavior, actions, and the role of individuals are shaped by the cultures of the society. The three elements of the system approach are input, process, and output. Fourth, the social action approach. It is a variant of the system approach. In the system approach, society plays a dominant role while the actors such as employers, employees, and their representatives keep a low profile and play a passive role in the process. Fifth, the Marxist approach. According to this approach, industrial conflicts are the central reality of industrial relations, but open conflicts are uncommon. The Marxist approach views industrial disputes as a class struggle and industrial relations as a politicized concept and an element of class struggle. Sixth, the Gandhian approach. The core of the Gandhian approach in industrial relations is the utility of non-violence as a means of conflict resolution in organizations. The basic elements of this approach are truth, non-violence, and voluntary arbitration of disputes and wantlessness. According to Gandhi, the growth of civilization does not mean a multiplication of wants, rather, it means a deliberate and self-imposed attempt to reduce such wants. Seventh, the human relations approach. According to this approach, an organization is nothing but a set of human relations, and these human relations are central to how an organization functions. As per this approach, organizations are made up of people, and the success of the management lies in its dealings with these people and their relationship to one another. The goals of human relations approach are: first, getting people to work; second, cooperating through mutuality of interest; and third, deriving satisfaction from the achieved relationship. Eighth, Giri approach. Former President of India V.V. Giri's deep concern for the well-being of working class made him write two popular books on labor issues entitled Industrial Relations and Labor Problems in Indian Industry. According to him, in the tree of socialism, the root comprises human beings. Giri observed that it is an essential condition to maintain mutual trust and confidence between the employer and employee to obtain the goal of rapid economic development and social justice. Ninth, industrial sociology approach. The aim of industrial sociology approach is to investigate the underlying trends and patterns in the cause and effect of industrial disputes, both intended and unintended. Unlike the most other approaches which focus only on the resolution of conflict as a means of achieving industrial relations, the industrial sociology approach focuses on the prevention of industrial conflict by tracing the cause of the disputes and then avoiding it. And last, Oxford School approach. According to this approach, the conflict between the interest of employers and employees is inherent, but this interest can be adjusted in order that a common way which can satisfy both the parties can be found out, however difficult it may be. Productivity bargaining is a classic example of this approach. According to this approach, it is highly essential for the parties to the industrial relations to get the facts right and avoid institutional and other biases. The Oxford School approach can be expressed through the equations. Factors influencing industrial relations. Trade union density. When the unions are phenomenally strong in an industry, the power balance would be in favor of employees and unions. In such situation, the term of industrial relations would be decided by the unions. Second, frequency of strike activity. When the organizations or industry reports a high number of strikes within a specified period, the industrial relations would come under increasing strain. Depending upon the outcome of the strikes, the power equation would change. Third, political economic institution. The role of politico-economic institution is critical in achieving industrial peace and harmony. When the political institutions, especially the ruling combine, overtly favor the employees and the trade unions, the power equation would be tilt in favor of union. Fourth, cultural diversity. When there is cultural diversity among the workforce, it may favor the employees to have decisions among the employees along cultural lines. The educated and enlightened employees may make independent decisions which may differ with the general stand of the unions. Fifth, demographic structure. The presence of heterogeneous groups based on age, gender, income, and other relative bases can also influence the power balance between employers and employees. Sixth, pattern of behavior. When the employee espouses authoritarianism in behavior and style of management, the employees may predominantly prefer unions and aggressive postures, if possible. In contrast, the employees side with the employers when the latter adopt a consultative paternal approach. Essential of effective industrial relations. First, leadership commitment. Effective industrial relations require strong commitment and support from the management for the maintenance of harmonious industrial relations. The management must develop a kind of culture and philosophy which encourages changes management through cooperation and consultation at all levels of the organization. Second, appropriate vision, mission, and business strategy. Thinking of organization and its priority for good industrial relations must be made known to all its employees. The management must make suitable changes in its vision and mission statements so that clearly and pursue them keenly to the end that the industrial relations goals are achieved effectively. Third, creative HR policies. The HR policies of an organization have a profound influence on shaping its industrial relations. In fact, they employees from their perception about the industrial relations on the basis of HR philosophy and policies of the organization. Fourth, open communication. An organization must develop a two-way communication channel to remain connected with its employees. An open communication system enables the management not only to keep the employees informed about the proposed changes, but also to get constant feedback from them about its policies and actions. Fifth, institutionalizing the relationship. In the long run, the management must develop a system for the improving industrial relations on a continuous basis. Intermittent processes like collective bargaining alone are not sufficient
to develop the desired level of industrial relationship. The management must take measures for promoting the industrial relations at all levels of the organization. Sixth, benchmarking industrial relations. Organizations must make every effort to fix standards or benchmarks for industrial relations so that the progress in industrial relations is properly monitored. Certainly, industrial conflicts like strikes, lockouts, and other forms of industrial disturbances are inversely related to industrial peace and harmony, and as such can become the criteria for measuring industrial relations. Causes of poor industrial relations are: first, economic causes; second, organizational causes; third, social causes; fourth, psychological causes; and fifth, political causes. Measures for improving industrial relations. Few measures for improving industrial relations are: first, sound human resource policies; second, constructive attitudes; third, collective bargaining; next, participative management; next, responsible union; next, employee welfare; and lastly, grievance procedure.
So students, let us summarize what we have learned in this module. Industrial relations refer to collective relationship between the parties involved directly in industry. They are complex and multidimensional concepts conditioned by the economic, social and political environment in a country. The basic objective of industrial relations is to develop and maintain mutual understanding and cooperation between the employer and the worker. Thank you.